So, wow. I mean, this was inevitable. We already knew this was all gonna happen, but for it to actually like go down the way it did is crazy. So, if you don't know and you're living under a rock, James Harden is finally traded, and he's going to the Brooklyn Nets. And yeah, this was we knew that him going to either Brooklyn or Philly was gonna happen, but now that it's actually like real and it's happening is crazy. And that's not even the crazy part, because the trade was so huge, and there was not just the Rockets and the Nets involved, there were other teams involved too. So let's quickly just break down what the trade is. So the Brooklyn Nets are getting James Harden. The Pacers are getting Karis LeVert and a second rounder. The Cavs are getting Jarrett Allen and Taurean Prince. And the Rockets are getting Victor Oladipo, Dante Exum, Crooks, 3 Brooklyn first rounders, 1 Milwaukee first, which is unprotected, and 4 first round pick swaps from Brooklyn. So this is a humongous trade. So many pieces involved, and the Rockets trade was crazy in itself, right? James Harden going to Brooklyn, and the first thing that came to everyone's mind was what's happening with Kyrie, because if you don't know, there's a lot of stuff going on with Kyrie right now, and there was some talk about what if, all the stuff that's happening with Kyrie, what if Brooklyn just decides that it's too much for them and they don't want to have to deal with it, so they decide to move on from him. But that's not what happened. They managed to get a deal done without having to get rid of Kyrie. So now you have a big three with James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant. So the league and the era of super teams are back after basically a year and a half of it being gone. Kawhi Leonard went to the Clippers, and it basically balanced everything out, and there was real parity. That parity's basically gone now. I mean, with the Brooklyn trade, you can't really say that it's an open-ended question about who's going to win the championship. It's very clear that the Brooklyn Nets are going to go out of the East now. They're the clear favorites, and I don't see how any teams in the East can stop that. I don't know how the Bucks can stop it. I don't know how the Celtics can stop it. I don't know how Philly does it. I don't know how anyone does it. The Brooklyn Nets are clearly going to go to the NBA Finals, and I had them going to the Finals already, but with James Harden, that's already going to happen. So, this trade was already kind of like what is going to happen. And for a while, it looked like there wasn't going to be any deal done because nothing was happening. Philly wanted a lot and Houston wanted a lot, and Philly wasn't able to give up a lot. Same thing with Brooklyn. So it just didn't look like something was going to happen, but it ended up happening. And it looked for a little bit earlier today like the Sixers were going to get Harden, but I guess that Tyrese Maxey has been playing out of his mind, and Philly did not want to give him up, which is understandable. So that didn't end up working out. And why this ended up happening, I think the last straw was last night after, the Rockets lost to the Lakers, and James Harden basically in his press conference basically sold out the team, basically said, I've did everything I could for the city, for this team. I give up. There's just no saving it. And that's basically, when you say that, you're basically saying, yeah, I'm done. I give up. And he did. And, this trade was basically inevitable. After that, you can't bring him back after saying that, right? Your star player is just so clearly, visibly angry with you and wants to move on. And then John Wall had some, shady stuff to say, throwing some shade at James Harden. DeMarcus Cousins talked about the disrespect that he had, that Harden had, and, he didn't understand why that disrespect was there. And Bookie basically said that he was excited to go to Houston, not because of James Harden, but because of John Wall, someone who he went to college with and is good friends with. So those quotes came out earlier today, and everyone's like, oh, so yeah, James Harden is just a locker room cancer now. And I mean, that's just the way it ended up being in Houston. Well, now he's in Brooklyn, and I feel bad for Steve Nash, who has to deal with 3 humongous egos like Kyrie, KD, and Harden. This is going to be either a complete other disaster, or this could be the greatest team of all time. This could go either or. When KD went to the Warriors, I think there weren't any questions about it not working out. Everyone knew it was going to work out, and it ended up working out. They became, in a way, a dynasty, right? But with the Brooklyn scenario, everyone's trying to figure out what's going to happen, right? Because it's not as easy to say that it's not going to work out or it will work out, Because on paper, yeah, it's going to work out. You have Kyrie Irving, who was a superstar point guard, regardless of his off-court stuff. He's an incredible talent on the court. James Harden is an ex-MVP, the greatest scorer I've ever seen. And Kevin Durant, who's just, who seems like he never tore his Achilles, right? He's playing like he never got hurt. So those three on paper, obviously they're going to be a great team. But losing Jared Allen is kind of a big deal. Losing Karis LeVert is kind of a big deal. And honestly, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think that this was a crazy trade. And the one thing that I think shocked everyone was not even the fact that James Harden went to Brooklyn, because for us that was inevitable. But I think the biggest shock when the trade went down and all the, Woj and Shams bombs came in, I think the biggest shock was Victor Oladipo going to the Rockets. Like, that came out of nowhere because everyone knew that, Oladipo had wanted to be out and there was some question about what was going to happen. But it looked like Indy was going to keep him because the Pacers are, doing really well right now. Miles Turner is an all-star. Domantas Sabonis is. Victor Oladipo still doing well. So it looked like the Pacers were going to keep him because they had a good team on paper. But I guess not. They're going to get Karis LeVert, and Victor Oladipo is now going to Houston. And now look at the Rockets team. They look still pretty good on paper, which I'm happy for them because the way that, James Harden kind of screwed them over, I was thinking that they were going to get screwed out of whatever deal ended up happening, but they got something in return. It's not James Harden, but it's something. Their starting lineup still looks nice. John Wall, Oladipo, Christian Wood, PJ Tucker, DeMarcus Cousins. Like, that's still a good team. That's a playoff team, the way I see it. So the Rockets did not get sold out on this trade, which I'm happy for them. But yeah, this is just such a wild trade. Like, Jared Allen going to Cleveland, after, it's so weird because Jared Allen is such a good player. He's only 22 and he's like terrific. And he, I'm just like, why did Cleveland get him? Because now you already have Andre Drummond, who is, an all-star, a great center, but now you have Jared Allen, and then you also got JaVale McGee in the offseason. So, the Cavs have a lot of big men now, and I'm going to be curious to see what happens with that. But that's something that I'm going to want to pay attention to, I think Jared Allen in Cleveland could become an all-star. I really do believe that. He's great already. He was already great with Brooklyn, and we've seen that over the past, few years that he's been playing. But I do think that he can take the next step in Cleveland and become something even better. So I'm excited to see that. But, what else is there to say? The Nets got James Harden, and they managed to keep Kyrie Irving. They still have Kevin Durant. That's insane, man. And look, Dinwiddie, man, it's going to be tough because Dinwiddie tore his ACL, so he's not playing this season. But, if you had him back, on top of the rest of the guys you have on the roster who are nice, you have Luwalu Cabarrot, you have Dinwiddie, you have DeAndre Jordan still. Like, you have so many guys who are still really good for this team. So what's going to happen now is going to be very interesting. And I'm very excited to see it. And look, the NBA is the only league that has this kind of chaos. Like, think about it. When a trade goes down, you don't see that kind of freak out in the NFL or in baseball or in any other sport. Only in the NBA do you have trades, free agency signings where there's genuine chaos, right? Like, I think that no matter what happens with the Nets team, it is going to be very interesting, regardless of what happens, whether they become a super team and they start winning games and winning a championship, that'll be interesting. Or if they completely fall apart because of their egos, that will also be very interesting and very entertaining. So I'm very excited to see what happens with the Brooklyn Nets. And God, it's so weird. A New York sports team has so much relevance, and it's so crazy because the Knicks this season also have gained a lot of respect because they're playing really well. But man, Brooklyn they're just insane, man. It's crazy how much work that got done. And man, what a weird day, huh? Like, this is all happening on the same day that the president is getting impeached for the second time, and no one's even talking about that because James Harden is going to Brooklyn. It's so crazy, man. Today's such a weird day, man. This is such a weird trade. It's going to be so interesting to see what happens next. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, leave a like. Comment down below what you think about this James Harden trade. Who do you think won the trade? Who do you think lost the trade? What do you think this means for Brooklyn and Houston? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, show your support for the channel. More videos on the way. And yeah, that's going to be it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.